This week in Pure Reinvention.
We have a world where the inputs are unending, that the competitors for whatever that you do now are relentless, and that the value that you have to have as an organization or as an individual with a skill set has to keep evolving.
Episode 105, Pure Reinvention Connections.
Engage, disrupt, adapt, repeat. You're listening to Pure Reinvention, the podcast for curious people.
Welcome to this episode of Pure Reinvention, where we create space for the unexpected by inspiring a reinvention lifestyle. We're here with my co-host, Julie Novak, Chief Executive Officer of the Michigan State Medical Society. Thanks for sticking around, Julie.
Thanks, Mike.
Julie, I want to spend a few minutes with you and talk about the power of the conversation. That for many individuals who are on a upwardly learning path, if there is such a way to say that, for those of us that are growing, and have found the more traditional means of education is not necessarily fulfilling our growth needs. I think you and I both have discovered the power of the conversation, the ability to engage in meaningful but different conversations which allow us to grow exponentially and begin to expose us to different thought and leads to our ability as leaders to be more diverse and more inclusive. Both very, very important characteristics for leaders. So, Julie, as you think about in your experience as a growing professional, and you think about the different ways in which one can learn in this new world, when we get away from the traditional methodology of attending a seminar, can you share with me some of the more valuable experiences you've had in which you've experienced growth and what those conversations have looked like?
I guess early in my tenure as taking over as a CEO or a leader in a new and more specific way, one of the things I did initially was that more traditional attend a conference. One of them I did was a virtual learning opportunity, but it was that more traditional structure. And that's helpful, but I don't think today it's necessary. And I think now there are much more rich resources available to people that are trying to grow their own leadership or try to grow their own vision, entrepreneurial skills, what have you. There are many better tools and much more diverse tools than just that traditional learning venue. And I think that's an opportunity to be exploited. It can be overwhelming, but I've actually found it to be energizing.
Well, we found in some of our earlier podcasts that we can't be afraid to take a risk, and we can't be afraid to try something new, and we have to be a little bit afraid.
Right.
And so one of the first ways in which I think we should talk about a new and emerging and very valuable form of learning is the role of the coach. How does the role of a coach enhance us as professionals?
I think there's sort of two thoughts about having an executive coach. One might be that it's trendy, and the other might be that it's reserved for sort of the very, very elite, people running Fortune 500 companies. I think you would be surprised to find that there are people in all different kinds of settings, and that some organizations are actually using coaches with teams of people to help them communicate better, to help them work together better, and to help them reinvent together. So the idea that that is not accessible to everybody, I think, is no longer true. And there are different ways about going about it. I had the opportunity early in my tenure to be encouraged by my search committee to search out an executive coach to help me make the transition into my role in the organization. I knew the organization, but I needed some new skills in my specific role as it had changed. And I found that incredibly valuable. I felt incredibly lucky to have that resource. My mission now is to help other people have that resource, even if they don't have the opportunity that I had, and to recognize that there are many ways to identify people that can help coach you or things that can help you coach yourself in your own development.
Julie, how do we get away from the notion that if I need a coach that I must be doing something wrong and I need to be fixed, as opposed to the role of a coach to really enhance?
I think we have to recognize that the role of what a leader, the idea of what a leader means is different than it was 30 or 40 or 50 years ago. We have a world where the inputs are unending, that the competitors for whatever that you do now are relentless, and that the value that you have to have as an organization or as an individual with a skill set has to keep evolving. The pace of our world is not going to slow down. So we need to have a focus, and we need to have a way to have a more inclusive discussion, rather than thinking that we have to have all the answers. We have to leverage every member of our team. We have to leverage every member in our leadership structure to find the answers for the organizations or the companies going forward. And I think people that recognize that actually have an advantage. It's not a weakness, it's a strength.
So what we're suggesting is to connect, to instead of being so internalized, we start to go external and start to connect in new and different ways, whether it's more one-on-one with coaching. But connecting takes on many different forms.
Right.
And Julie, one of the forms that you've been encouraging the Pure Reinvention team to continue to stay very active in is the role of podcasts. How does the role of podcasts help to start connecting individuals who are curious and want to grow to new subjects?
There are so many resources that are available. And until Pure Reinvention, I really didn't understand the podcast world and understand the kind of information that's out there that is accessible at any time on my schedule to people that have great skills, great knowledge, great teaching opportunities for me that I would never meet, that I would never have the opportunity to interact with, either one-on-one or necessarily even in a conference. Hearing the stories that have been told through the Pure Reinvention podcasts opened a gateway to me. And once I understood that was a thing where you could learn and you could be exposed to new ideas and you could be encouraged in your development, then I began seeking out other kinds of podcasts, which are now very accessible and very available and are all free. So it's like having a network or having a series of coaches available to you. You can pick out the topics. They're almost endless. It can be leadership, it can be personal development, it can be inspirational, it can be entertainment. And taking advantage of the fact that if you have a commute or you have some time or you're doing a task that's sort of mindless and you can listen to something, that you can learn something or you can be inspired by something that will help you in your role as a leader and as a professional.
So podcasts tend to be somewhat passive, though they're available 24/7. When you're ready, the podcast is there and ready for you. The role of a coach tends to be more one-on-one. Mm-hmm. Yet we've also learned there's a great value in groups of like-minded individuals getting together and having very robust conversation, of which you are an active participant in one of those.
Right, and they're like-minded in the sense that they're all trying to recreate or renovate or modernize an organization to be, or a company to be relevant into the future, knowing that it's a very disruptive world. But they're not like-minded in the sense that they come from different backgrounds, from different perspectives, and they don't necessarily even work in similar industries. And yet, the things that they're dealing with, the themes that they encounter, the roles that they're trying to manage are very similar, and the stories that they can tell each other and the perspectives that they can give to each other are a learning experience that are kind of unmatched in any of these other venues.
This week's episode is sponsored by Willpower Consulting. Whether it be pursuing new avenues in content delivery like podcasts or developing a sustainable content building strategy, Willpower Consulting is with you every step of the way. Get a dose of willpower at WilliamRCarlson.com or at WilliamRCarlson on Twitter.
Learning experiences as one gets to be more mature appears to evolve more from a read and regurgitate to a show me the value, and it becomes an opportunity to share experiences, and through shared experience begin to learn and become curious, and then to learn what the experiences of others might have the ability to teach me. So we move into the more case study, we move into the question and answer conversation, we move into the test and seek to understand conversation. And regardless of the size of the group, Julie, that you've been involved with, whether there have been 4 people or 10 people, Talk about the takeaways that you get.
Well, I think part of it is just the consolation that you have the ability to know that other people are dealing with the same things that you're dealing with. And in my setting, it has been having conversations with other executives. But I think the model is useful no matter what your role is or what your position is. I think the idea that you can come together with people that are dealing with the same things that you're dealing with, hear their stories, get their perspective, share your learning, that interactive conversation is actually sort of a live, moving learning laboratory, and it is real life experience. It's case studies in action rather than case studies sort of looking back historically, which is the way you tend to do it in sort of graduate school or in a conference. Right. This is an ongoing conversation where you're taking your own experience and being willing to be vulnerable enough to talk about what you're facing, what you're struggling with, to be honest, to create a trust, sort of environment where you can do that sharing with others and they will do it with you. And that is reinforcing because it's not just you, but it's also a learning opportunity. You hear ideas that you think, how can I apply this to my setting? How might I be able to do something that they've tried in my particular situation? How can I leverage my board and staff relationships to, do the most for the organization, knowing that it can't just be all up to me? I think that interaction is where real learning takes place.
We at Pure Reinvention really respect the more active learning process that, Julie, what you're describing brings to the forefront. Pure Reinvention is very pleased to announce that there will be a number of those kind of learning opportunities available starting in 2017. Pure Reinvention Connections is the opportunity to bring like-minded individuals together in a comfortable setting that allows for a sharing of experiences, that allows curious professionals to ask questions and receive information in a safe and confidential setting, that helps to boost their knowledge, boost their careers, boost their productivity, boost their competency by learning from those who are also doing the same thing. And I think that becomes the real key, is not learning in a static environment of somebody said, but, Julie, as you described it, having a learning environment that's in motion.
Right. The world's going to keep moving, and the idea that we can learn something, figure it out, and then we're set, those days are past.
So if you're ready for a learning environment where we are using the current relevant in-motion experiences that like-minded individuals have, this just might be an opportunity and an offering that you'll be very interested in. So if you're ready for a change, make it a change that lasts, and make it Pure Reinvention.
Thanks for listening to this episode of Pure Reinvention. Keep the conversation going and get alerts when new podcasts are up by following us on Twitter at Pure Reinvention or sign up for our mailing list at purereinvention.com.